West, y'all.
We are built for this network, for the strong, not the weak.
When everyone talks about the greatest NBA draft classes of all time, it really only comes down to two options: 1984 or 1996. 2003 comes close, but I believe it's just a notch below those two. These classes were headlined by all-time greats, some of the best players to have ever stepped foot on the NBA court. But today, I'll only be comparing 1984 and 1996. In 84, we had players like Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, Charles Barkley, and John Stockton. In 96, we had Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson, Steve Nash, Ray Allen, and even an undrafted Ben Wallace, who was still part of this class and became the greatest undrafted player of all time. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and today we're gonna do a full breakdown of these two draft classes. And we'll try to figure out by the numbers which one is the greatest class of all time. First, let's look at some numbers. In 84, there were 7 different players who made at least one All-Star game. Those 7 players combined for a total of 53 All-Star selections. Most of them came from 4 players: Jordan, Hakeem, Barkley, and Stockton. These 4 are also approximately top 20 players of all time. If you look at win shares, for example, all 4 of them accumulated at least 160 win shares throughout their careers, and they're all in the top 20 in total win shares. To have 4 players this good come from the same class is unprecedented. Now, in 96, the talent was a bit more spread out. There were 11 different players who became All-Stars, and they combined for a total of 68 All-Star selections. The top 4 here includes Kobe Bryant, Allen Iverson, Steve Nash, and Ray Allen. Going by win shares and their overall resume, combined, they're not as good. So you can safely say that this top 4 is weaker than the top 4 in 1984. However, there are some similarities, so let's take a look at both of these top 4s. Each group accumulated the same number of finals appearances, with 12. In 84, they accumulated 8 championships, 6 from Jordan and 2 from Hakeem. In 96, they accumulated 7, 5 from Kobe and 2 from Ray Allen. MVP-wise, it's a bit more lopsided. 84 had 7 total MVP awards. Of course, most of them were from Jordan. In 96, they had 4 MVPs total. Coincidentally, both of these top 4s had exactly 47 All-Star appearances. Now that's pretty cool. So before we dive back into the details, looking at the top players of each class, it's clear that 84 was more top-heavy. They had better players near the top, but 96 was deeper, considering they had more All-Star players overall as you go down the draft board. Here are some more numbers. In 84, 6 different players made at least one All-NBA team. In 96, there were 8 different players, which is currently the most out of any other class in history. 3 different players won the Defensive Player of the Year award from the 84 class: MJ, Hakeem, and Alvin Robertson. 1996 only had 2 players, Marcus Camby and Ben Wallace. However, if you were to add up all of their DPOY awards, then 96 would come out on top because Ben Wallace won 4 by himself. Also, speaking of Marcus Camby, there were a ton of solid players in 96. This draft was much deeper. A lot of stars and other players don't get as much recognition as the main guys, but they were so good in their respective careers. Let's take a look at some other great players. Jermaine O'Neal was one of them. A 6-time All-Star, a great big man back in his day with the Pacers. His career started off very slow. In his first 4 seasons with Portland, he was a bench warmer, barely getting any playing time, as the team believed he was too young and had absolutely no use for him. While the Blazers claimed that O'Neal was not ready and needed more time to mature, the Pacers immediately inserted him into the starting lineup. O'Neal became an All-Star at the age of 23. This started a string of 6 consecutive All-Star appearances, something that few players have done before. He was the man on the team, the leader of a young squad that made it deep into the playoffs for multiple years. While those days were known to be Reggie Miller's final years, it was Jermaine O'Neal who led the way. During this 6-year stretch, he averaged 20 points and 10 rebounds with over 2 blocks a game. Peja Stojakovic was another guy from this class, drafted right after Kobe Bryant. He was the wingman next to Chris Webber, but eventually became the first option. A 3-time All-Star and 2-time winner of the three-point contest. For a long time, the title of best shooter in the league belonged to either him or Ray Allen. Sharif Abdur-Rahim was the first ever star of the Vancouver Grizzlies. For his first 5 seasons, he would lead the team in scoring with over 20 points a game. He was quite the unique player, a versatile do-it-all combo forward with a well-rounded game. Unfortunately, the Grizzlies would not make the playoffs, and shortly after he was gone, they would relocate to Memphis. You had other guys too, like Antoine Walker, Stephon Marbury, and Big Z, Zydrunas Ilgauskas. All of them became stars for their own teams. Anyway, for the 1984 class, we didn't see many other notable players outside of the top 4. You had Kevin Willis, who had one of the longest careers ever and retired at the age of 44, a great post scorer and rebounder back in his day. Sam Perkins was another guy who played a very long time, most known for being a crucial piece of the Mavs and Sonics, as they made deep playoff runs. You had Otis Thorpe, most known for playing alongside Hakeem Olajuwon. You had Alvin Robertson, a 6-time All-Defender, and in 1986, he averaged 3.7 steals per game, an NBA record that still stands today. I doubt it'll ever be broken. He's one of the greatest perimeter defenders of all time, and perhaps he doesn't get the credit he deserves. Of course, you also had Sam Bowie, the man who got drafted between Hakeem and MJ, but succumbed to injuries. Now, let's talk about cultural impact on the world and on the NBA landscape. The 96 class had a huge cultural impact. AI and Kobe paved the way for the NBA's global popularity boom. Everyone wanted to be like them. Iverson was an inspiration to smaller guards all over the world, and a lot of players today cite him as the reason they got into basketball. He popularized his own styles of crossovers. Nowadays, when you're throwing that ball of paper into the trash, you yell Kobe. He became a part of everyone's life. Steve Nash became the point guard of the future, and how every point guard today wants to run an offense. Fast-paced, absurdly efficient, a great shooter, and a ridiculous passer. Very few point guards have this complete package. Nash, D'Antoni, and the Phoenix Suns redefined the modern NBA offense, bringing a sense of excitement that we haven't seen in a long time. The 2000s saw this wave of new talent, and this decade was dominated by players from the 96 class. Not only that, but there was also a guy like Stephon Marbury. Despite his highly touted potential, his NBA career faltered. But he took his talents to China and became the first ever foreigner to establish himself as a superstar there. While the 96 class had a bigger impact on the modern era of basketball, the 84 class absolutely dominated the 1990s, which many of us believe was the greatest decade in NBA history. There's no bigger global icon than Michael Jordan. He was the first NBA star who became a worldwide name. Everyone from the neighborhoods of Compton to the streets of Shanghai, they all know who MJ is. You could say that this class kicked off the evolution of the modern game. They started an era of individuality. Players wanted to have their own identity. Sneaker deals, sponsorships, commercials. While that was happening before, it really blew up in the 1990s because of this new wave of stars. Not only that, but players were using their voice for better purposes, trying to send their message to the youth and people who look up to them. At times, it was controversial, but the fact that these players had a platform to do so was unprecedented. On top of all of this, guys like MJ and Barkley forced the NBA to create rule changes because they were so dominant. The 5-second back to the basket rule was implemented because Chuck would just post people up and back them down from the 3-point line to the paint. He would simply overpower them. The removal of hand checking is widely associated with the NBA wanting to find the next MJ, so they gave future perimeter players an edge. The transition from being a big man dominated league into a guard dominated league started with MJ. So from the standpoint of cultural impact on the league and the world, I'd say it's relatively even. The 84 class started it and set the standard for future generations. But the 96 class renovated and continued to impact the newer generations. Anyway, that sums up this comparison. Overall, I'd say it's very close, but I would give the edge to 1984. Even though 96 was the deeper class with more All-Stars, the top of the 84 class was just so good. I believe it puts them over the top as the greatest class in NBA history. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Also, how would you compare the 2003 class to either of these classes? Is 03 also in the running? Or is it clearly behind 84 and 96? Let me know in the comments. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.
West, y'all. Bang, bang.
Throw them W's up. West Side Wednesdays with your boy, D Greatest from South Central. Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. X Squad Online Radio Network, iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more.
Good evening, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, haters and bitter friends. It's your man, HRap, coming at you live and direct. It's the End of the Bench. It's Tuesday. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on what time you are in, that is appropriate. We have another episode of the End of the Bench podcast on Built for This Network. We in the building. Thank you for tuning in. As I said, front listeners in the chat room, I've already addressed. Background listeners, thank you for clicking the link. Thank you for hitting like. Thank you, if at all possible, can you share on all your social media platforms, Twitter and or Facebook. Thank you very much if you can. If you can't, that's cool too. As I do every week, I want to bring acknowledgments to my ancestors. Without them, there is no me. I address them every week because when you send respect up to them, they send protections and blessings down to you. That's everybody in the Whitmore, Pollard, Turner, Battle, Cotton, Harper, Bailey, Chris, Lansdowne, Lincolns, Duncan, and you all know me and my pops. We make up the Williams clan. We are in the building. Thank you again. Every week, it's always interesting. We're at the beginning of the football season. It's going down. We all enjoy that. It is definitely a needed break from the turmoil that we call the corona pandemic. I got my main man with me by the name of Joe McGee. He's in the building. What's good, Joe?
What's good? What up, everybody? Man, like you said, just speaking on that, it was a great weekend. Finally got the football back. Man, basketball is in full swing. Baseball is in full swing. It seems like we're starting to get a big sense of normal back in our lives, but of course, still getting outside, so we understand what's going on with that.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, the new normal gonna be interesting. I don't know if we ever gonna be able to call it normal again. It just depends on what you expect out of your normal. I'm glad I'm a lot older, so outside isn't really a big part of my day or my life anymore, for that matter. So I'm good with that. It would be nice to go places, but I'm good, man. I'd rather just be around so I can go places sometime in the near future. With that being said,